Last week you learned how to find the sum of a finite arithmetic series. This week you're going to find the sum of a finite geometric series, which means you're multiplying by a number to get to the next number in the series. Okay, so S of n, you know from last week, is just sum. A1 is your first term. N is the number of terms. R is your newest one. It's your rate. If you finish the first section with sequences, the rate is just what you multiply each number by to get to the next one. So the first question says, find the sum of the first 9 terms of the sequence. So 9 is your N. Your first term is 20. We have to figure out what you multiply 20 by to get to negative 100. The number you would multiply 20 by to get to negative 100 is negative 5. If you don't know that off the top of your head, you take this number and you divide it by the number before it, and you would get negative 5. And you also notice 500 divided by negative 100 is also negative 5. So negative 5 is my R. Now I have enough information to plug it in. S of my 9 terms, so sum of my first 9 terms, is my first term, which is 20, minus 20 times the rate of negative 5, all to the 9th power. And I need to divide that by 1 minus my rate of negative 5. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is clean up the bottom. What's 1 minus a negative 5? That gives me 6. That's the most important part to clean up first, and then everything else will just work. So now I'm going to put the numerator on top again, just so it's a little easier to see. I'm going to plug it into my calculator. 20 minus 20 times negative 5, all to the 9th power. Press enter, and I'm going to divide it by 6. So the sum of my first 9 terms is this number right here, 6,510,420. And because there is no decimal, I do not need to round it. Okay, my second one says, find the sum of the first 7 terms of the following sequence, rounded to the nearest hundredth if necessary. Okay, so I know my A1 is 21. I know my N is 7. I wanted the sum of the first 7 terms. I had to figure out what my R is. Now, off the top of your head, you probably are saying, well, I know 21 divided by negative 3 is negative 7, but your rate is always multiplication, so you have to think 21 times what gets you negative 7. So if you know it's divide by negative 3, that's the same thing as saying times by the reciprocal, which is negative 1/3. Also, you can do the same thing we did in the first one up top. You take the second number and put it over the number before it. Simplify that. That gives you a negative 1/3. 7 divides into both. So your rate is negative 1/3. Now from there, I'm just going to solve. Sum of my 7 terms is my first term, which is 21, minus 21, rate of negative 1/3, all to the 7th, divided by 1 minus a negative 1/3. Okay, I'm going to clean up the bottom first. 1 plus 1/3. You can leave it as 1.33, or you can make it 4/3. Either works. Now I'm going to clean up the top. All to the 7th. And divide it by 4 divided by 3. 15.757 round to the nearest hundredth would be this decimal place, so it's 15.76. That would be the sum of your first 7 terms. Let's try another together. Find the sum of the first 8 terms of the following sequence. So we know n is 8. A1 is my first term, which is 2. I have to figure out what my rate is. I don't know what 2 times what gets me negative 3, so I need to put negative 3 as my numerator, all over 2. And you can just leave it like that, or you can make it negative 1/2, whichever is easier. It means the same. S of my 8 terms will be my first term, which is 2, minus first term times my rate, which is negative 1.5, all to the 8th power, all divided by 1 minus my rate, which is negative 1.5. Clean up the denominator first, and you get 2.5. And then when I plug the top part into my calculator, I get that. I'm going to divide it by 2.5. My sum is negative 19.703, round to the nearest hundredth, which would be this decimal place. The 3 does not change that 0. So the sum of my first 8 terms is that. Okay, stop by with any questions.